Developing news tonight, as Hurricane Harvey batters Texas, President Trump has created quite a storm of his own. He not only made the military ban of transgender people official, he also pardoned former sheriff convicted of ignoring a judge's immigration order. KCON9 political reporter Dave Bryan is here with us right now. Dave, some people are questioning the timing of all of this. He, of course, made mention of that during the rally earlier this week about Arpaio.
That's right, and we'll see that in just a moment. And this hurricane actually could be having a pretty significant political impact, and here's how. It's certainly not unusual for presidents to dump unpopular or controversial news or actions on a Friday night to get lost in the weekend shuffle. But tonight, President Trump has dumped two highly controversial actions and one resignation or firing on a Friday night when a deadly hurricane is bearing down on the Gulf Coast, and it doesn't look like it's a coincidence.
Was Sheriff Joe convicted for doing his job?
On Tuesday night in Phoenix, President Trump charged up the crowd of supporters by raising the case of Arizona Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who was found in criminal contempt for continuing to target Latino drivers to be pulled over by deputies, violating a court order banning the racial profiling. The president teased the crowd, saying he wasn't going to pardon Arpaio that night because, with a wink and a nod, he didn't want to cause any controversy.
I'll make a prediction. I think he's going to be just fine, okay?
And sure enough, 3 days later, he was right. On a night when most Americans were focused on news about a devastating hurricane slamming into the Gulf Coast states, the White House quietly announced President Trump pardoned one of the most controversial law officials in the country. But with the hurricane wreaking havoc, the Arpaio pardon story will be buried. MALDEF President and General Counsel Thomas Saenz told our Christy Fajardo such a pardon adds to the perception that President Trump has no problem with encouraging racism and profiling.
A pardon at this point would simply gratuitously bless what he did, and what he did is monstrous. He engaged in unconstitutional racial discrimination, and when a federal court called him on that, he openly defied that order and let his officers, indeed directed them to continue to engage in unconstitutional policing against the orders of a federal court. So this would be a gross misuse of the pardon power.
But the White House has a very different view of Arpaio, putting out its own statement on the pardon, saying, after more than 50 years of admirable service to our nation, he is a worthy candidate for a presidential pardon. Claremont McKenna political science professor Jack Pitney says the pardon won't be changed.
Just one thing about the pardon power that people have to understand. This is an unchecked power. The president can pardon for any federal offense, and there's nothing that anybody can do about it.
The Arpaio pardon was announced just a few hours after another controversial decision was confirmed, even as the perfect storm approached Texas. President Trump signing a directive to the Pentagon banning transgender individuals from joining the military. Now the question is, what happens to the transgender servicemen and women who are already in the military, estimated to be between 1,300 and change to more than 15,000. Right now it appears that decision will be left up to Defense Secretary Jim Mattis. Professor Pitney says releasing both items on a Friday night during a colossal hurricane is a calculated political decision.
Well, in effect, he's daring his critics to come after him because in the wake of a disaster, he's going to be emphasizing his role as the president, somebody bringing aid to the people of Texas, and saying, well, this is what we as a nation should be concentrating on right now, not political attacks.
In reaction to the Trump pardon of former Sheriff Arpaio, late tonight from Arizona Senator John McCain, whom President Trump ridiculed at his Phoenix speech this week. McCain tweeted, POTUS pardon of Joe Arpaio, who illegally profiled Latinos, undermines his claim for the respect of rule of law. Now, the third piece of this puzzle was also revealed late today. Sebastian Gorka, a controversy on freewheeling advisor to President Trump on national security issues, was reportedly forced out of his job at the White House. That might not go down well with the alt-right, especially in the aftermath of Stephen Bannon's recent departure. But once again, the story will now be buried with the other reports behind the hurricane news, right?
Yeah, I guess President Trump wouldn't be the first politician to do a Friday dump of news.
Not at all.
This happens all the time. But how is this going going to benefit him to do this at this time?
We already talked about a couple of ways, and there are a bunch more to tell you about, because dumping these stories on this Hurricane Friday night can be a win-win for President Trump in a variety of ways. Not only do these other stories get buried on the back burner for another 4 or 5 days while this hurricane is expected to churn, not only does it chop off the criticism of a president who will likely be seen helping the victims of this hurricane next week, but also President Trump can now use these actions, the Arpaio pardon, cracking down on transgender military servicemen and women, to rally his supporters at all the rallies to be coming up to cheer him in the future. And he dodged a street battle in Phoenix by holding off on the pardon until today, Jeff.